Greetings, pet lovers. Bridget here with First Street Pets. Today we're going to talk about, has the recent quarantine affected your dog's behavior? The current pandemic has changed the world for everyone. Literally everyone. People have lost their jobs. People are working from home. Kids are not going to school. Many businesses have been forced to close, and unfortunately, many are closing for good or switching to an online-only business model. People are afraid to travel because of catching the disease. So a lot has changed for all people and for our pets. As a pet care professional of over 25 years, I noticed trends in animal care and behavior. And one of the things that kind of jumps out at me, having lived in a metro area and in the city in San Francisco and out in the country in both Santa Clara and Sonoma counties, I have noticed some differences in dog behaviors. Now, I'm generalizing here, so don't come for me. But what I have noticed, especially in the cities, many people live in apartments, flats, high density kind of housing, and they don't leave their dogs outside, either because it's not safe or they would bark and annoy the neighbors, or because there isn't a yard. Those dogs get walked multiple times a day. What I have seen is a lot of city dogs are very social. They go everywhere with their owners. They're friendly with other dogs and people. They take them to outdoor cafes and any place else they can. So these dogs tend to have a high level of sociability. Again, I'm generalizing, but this is something I have seen quite a lot of. On the other hand, a lot of country dogs never go off the property. The bigger a piece of property someone has, the less likely they are to actually take their dog somewhere else and go for a walk. And I get it. A lot of the roads in the country aren't safe. They're narrow. There's no shoulder. People drive too fast. But if you don't get your dogs out, they don't get socialized. And I have seen a lot of those dogs are very fearful. They don't even know how to walk on a leash. One of my dogs, when I first got him, was a country dog and just had no clue what a leash was. He would just bolt from one direction to the other. So there's a lot that doesn't happen for dogs that only stay on their own property. And a lot of those consequences can be negative. In the last 10, 11 months of lockdown, whatever it's been that we've been going through this thing, I have heard some interesting stories from different dog people saying that they went out and they took their dog somewhere and they ran into a friend with another dog and their dog reacted really fearfully or aggressively. And this was not behavior that they had shown before. Other people finally had someone come to the house after months of nobody coming over and the dog reacted aggressively or wanted to bite, where they had not shown this kind of behavior before. So what this is telling me is that the isolation and lack of exercise is bringing out the worst in our dogs, and possibly in us. So conversely, other dogs are doing better during this time because where I live, it's a very busy street leading to a walking path by the river. So especially on the weekends, but also all week, people walk back and forth in front of the house all the time. I am seeing a lot of dogs out for walks that I didn't really see before. One of my neighbors has a husky. They seem to be really popular around here right now. And during the quarantine, they got another one, a puppy. So you might think 2 huskies is a disaster, but they're doing great. I see them out walking the dogs every day for long walks, at least an hour every day, probably a couple times a day. So some dogs are benefiting because people are home more and they're not as busy and they're not as tired. So they are spending more time outside with their family, doing activities, and with their dogs. So this is one of the positive things that's come out of this current situation. As social and pack animals, dogs really need to interact with other dogs. Now, of course, there are exceptions. If a dog has a known history of aggressive and fearful behavior that hasn't been addressed and they're not safe around other dogs, that's fine. They need to be kept away from other dogs and hopefully working with a trainer to minimize that kind of behavior. But the majority of dogs do get along with others. For example, my 2 dogs, Annie and Caden, they are very territorial around the house. They'll bark in the window at anybody who walks by. When I'm on a leash, they can be reactive. But I take them to the groomer and to doggy daycare, fine. They're there with 20, 30 other dogs. Everybody gets along fine. So in the right situation, they are very social dogs, just like everybody else. So I would highly encourage you to take any opportunities you have to socialize with your dogs. Now, there's no reason you can't walk outside with friends, with masks, with social distance and all that. You are much less likely to be exposed to a disease pathogen out in the open than in an enclosed area, say like when you go shopping at Walmart, which people are doing every day and don't seem to be too concerned about. I would rather be outside in the open air. You can walk with your friends and their dogs. If they're a little uncomfortable, keep a distance, but at least they're walking and they're seeing other dogs and they're getting out and about and they're not just in the house with nothing to do all day. Just like us humans, dogs need exercise and stimulation to be healthy and well, both mentally and physically. So if you are afraid and not going out, you're probably both suffering, you and your dog or dogs. So I would highly recommend that you find some kind of solution to get your dog out, whether it's maybe walking by yourself if you don't want to be around other people. Pick a time when other people aren't around. I wake up super early in the morning, so if I walk at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm probably not going to run into anybody else. Or you can take your dog to a doggy daycare and let him or her blow off some steam there, have some fun and exercise. There are services that will pick up and drop off if you don't want to drive there or go out of the house. You can also engage the services of a professional dog walker to come to your house and to take your dogs out. I've been doing this recently for a lady whose dogs hadn't gotten out for a long time because of COVID, and so their behavior kind of got worse, and so she wasn't able to walk them herself because they were just yanking in every direction. So I've been walking them regularly. That's going really well. I'm observing precautions. She gives me the dogs outside of her house so I don't come in the house. I'm wearing a mask. So these are all questions that you can ask a dog walker if you have any concerns. But don't wait any longer. Don't wait any more months to just not do anything about it and not let your dogs get any exercise or stimulation outside of the house. I just got my first vaccine this week and I'm still standing. It was a little sore the next day, but got to do it. Hopefully this will bring things back closer to normal, whatever the new normal is. I know I'm finally starting to get some calls for pet sitting as people get their vaccine. They're going to be traveling. So hopefully you and your dog can get out, do some fun things together, go to a daycare, go for a walk, and avoid these behavioral issues. Thank you so much for watching and for supporting my channel.